Welcome to the Creative Coast's video podcasts, featuring Savannah's top thinkers, business people, innovators, and creators. With host B. Ray, director of the Creative Coast, and program director Sharice Bennett. What follows are interviews running on the Creative Coast's website this month. You can check out the podcasts day or night at thecreativecoast.org/blog.
Brick wall after brick wall after brick wall.
Hello and welcome to the front porch. My name is Bea Ray. I'm with the Creative Coast, and I have the delight of speaking today with Patrick Shay. Hey.
Tell me, the pleasure is all mine, really.
Well, thanks for
Good
being
to be
here.
here with you.
Tell me, let's talk architecture.
Sure.
So, what is it that you love? What kinds of buildings do you love to work with, and what kinds of projects?
Well, I think anytime that you get a chance to design a new building, that's always a great thrill. It's like, for a man at least, being involved in a birth. But I enjoy, in many ways, doing a building like the one that we're in, where you get to give it a new life and maybe buy it another 100 years or so of usable time. Because that's a little bit like a resurrection, so that's even more challenging and more exciting. But anything that's in Savannah, I love doing. So as long as the architecture involves making more Savannah, then I'm there. I'm ready.
Wonderful. And so, what's the oldest building you've worked on?
Wow, that's a really good question. I worked on a building that is supposed to be dating back to the late 1700s, but I couldn't prove that for a fact. It was a very, very old log cabin. But I would say most of the buildings that are old buildings that I've worked on, had a chance to work on, were from the 1800s, from the 19th century, because that's where most of the building fabric in Savannah is, that like this building. From that era.
And so you resurrected that log cabin from a log cabin to a log cabin, or did it have a new life?
That was actually a restoration. That was actually making it back as nearly as we could to what it was exactly when it was first built, with authentic materials. But most of the projects that we do are what we call adaptive rehabilitation or adaptive reuse, where we take a historic building and we reuse as much of the historic fabric as possible, and then give the building a new life. I think an example of that would be the Florence, the new restaurant that just opened, was originally the Savannah Ice Company, and although that had become obsolete, ice is made in different ways now than it was in 1890, but we actually got to use a lot of the original historic fabric and create a new place for Hugh Atchison's wonderful new restaurant. So that would be an example of an adaptive rehabilitation.
I love it. Talk to us a little bit about that process.
Well, you have to go out and do a lot of research into what the existing building is, what it was from a standpoint of its purpose when it was built the first time. Because in a way, when you're working on an older building like that, if you pay attention carefully, it'll actually talk to you. It'll actually start to tell you what it wants to be. And so if you listen carefully, you can make sure that the building is still faithful to what it was originally, but then also it has a new voice. So that's how the process works. Now, we have clients, as it turns out, and they always want the building to have a new economic purpose. So we have to be very careful that we don't err too much on the side of making it what it was, because it probably doesn't have an economic purpose anymore. So, it's one of the more common words in architecture used today is sustainability. Well, part of sustainability is making sure that it has the economic usefulness to be able to be maintained going forward, because if you make it perfect but then it's impossible to be maintained, it won't last very long. So you have to give it new economic vitality at the same time that you give it, new physical and maybe a little bit of spiritual vitality.
And is there a relationship between sort of that building and the food, perhaps?
Oh, it definitely is. I mean, that in that particular case, the client is a very famous but very honest and dedicated guru of American farm to table. And so when he came in, when we had a chance to walk the property with Hugh, and we would sort of look at some things that were kind of edgy, there's some writing on the walls that's left over that, isn't necessarily, he said, no, this has got to be authentic. It's, everything was about authenticity, about making sure that when people dine, that they have an experience that is very real and very sincere, and obviously good to eat. So it does have an influence at the end of the day in the way that you think about things and the way you make decisions, so that you can reinforce the dining experience. I think his food is so good, you probably could have had it just about anywhere, and people would want to go eat there. But then to go someplace that's also an authentic experience with your other senses, that makes it something that's sublime.
What's your favorite menu item?
Favorite minuet?
Item.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, menu item.
Yes.
I thought you said minuet. I thought we were going to start doing the dancing thing. No,
We can do that.
My favorite menu item. Well, okay, I'm going to admit it to you. My favorite thing is you go upstairs into the bar on the second floor, which is probably in many ways the more spectacular of the spaces, and you can get a pepperoni dog. It's like a hot dog that's on home fresh baked bread with pepperoni and a really amazing sauce that they make there, and it's very inexpensive. It's like $8, so I can afford to go over there and eat that and not below the family budget. But it seems that when I do go over there, I end up spending more for some reason. Get more than that. But I would say pepperoni dog. Now, there's a lot of really great stuff on that menu that's a lot more exotic than that.
So I wasn't going to ask you to dance, although that is a possibility.
Okay.
But there is a rumor that you recite poetry.
Well, I'm not so much a poet that I recite all the time, but it's funny how when you're making architecture or you're making a presentation, that one of the things that pops into your head is things that have really moved you in other ways in your life. So I'm not prepared to do a recitation, but what I will tell you is that I'll give you an analogy at least. We're working on a building here for you, and one of the things that I'm always reminded of when we're starting to do a project like this is all the world's a stage and we're but players in it. So what we do is we don't create the drama, what we do is we create the stage so that the people that inhabit the building are the stars, and if we get it right, then the building just seems like it was meant to be.
Well, I personally love the chance to work with you. I love where we're headed with the Creators Foundry.
Yeah.
We are in this beautiful building. It is starting to unfold as a great stage, and thank you for being part of the great drama. So,
well, you guys you're a great client. You're just tons of fun to work with, and we just love being around the creative energy. We have it inside of our office, but we want to see that same creative energy all over Savannah, because that's what we are. We're a creative city now, and I think that's that brand is a lot stronger now as a consequence of the Creative Coast and what you guys have been doing.
great.
Yep.
Well, Pat Shay with Gunn Meyerhoff Shay, just wonderful to see all the work you're doing in Savannah, and thanks for being part of the Creative Coast.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Front Porch. My name is Bea Ray, and today we're chatting it up with Maggie Ward of Gunn Meyerhoff Shay. Welcome, Maggie.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So you, I know, are an architect because I get the chance to work with you. Tell me about why this is your chosen field.
Well, when I was in 7th grade, I was at a charter school actually, and one of the things we were focusing on was architecture. So I got to have the opportunity to design a elementary school, and ever since then I've always been interested in the idea of putting spaces together. So
What did you put in that elementary school?
well, I was in a school that had a very open floor plan, so the concept of the school was that there wouldn't be any walls. So with little kids and a school, probably 12 at this point, so I don't know too much, but I always like the idea of being able to see what other people are learning. So I like the concept of the openness and keeping it so that it's a collaborative environment.
So quite young, well before even middle school, you're making this plan. And so did you sort of choose colleges and math courses along the way that would keep you on target?
It became more of an art focus. I definitely wanted to choose a school that had art as the main point of architecture. So I veered away from the more technical schools, and luckily SCAD, which is where I'm from, Savannah, I had the opportunity to stay in my town and go to architecture school.
Great.
So I got to lead all the way through into my career now.
Wonderful. And is it the career that you had hoped for when you were back in grade school?
You know, that's an interesting question. I wonder if I could go back and ask myself. When I was doing it in seventh grade, I liked the technical aspect of it. And then as I started to go through school, I really enjoyed the art part of it. So what I have discovered in working in the real world is that you do get to have both. You get to experience the art and the technical side of it, because people are leaning on you for your professional expertise, but you also get to design some really cool spaces. So I think it is turning out to be what I thought it would be.
I didn't mean to go here, but my 7th grade daughter wrote a letter to herself, and so has every single 7th grader in this English class for the last 10 years. And she keeps a file cabinet, and the teacher gets an address, and when they graduate from high school, the letter is sent. So it's not your career later, but there is something about your dreams and aspirations of when you're in 7th grade that she doesn't want you to lose. And there's like a flip that's switched on at that time, and yours stayed. So that's pretty exciting. So talk to me about the beginning of a process and sort of how you let your projects unfold.
Well, a lot of it comes to the client and finding out exactly what they need. And you will have some clients that know exactly what they want, and you're more there to help them put it on paper. But then there are some that have an idea, and it's up to you to try and pull more information out of that person or group of people. And so that's really where it starts, is sitting down and just having a conversation, trying to find out exactly what they need and maybe what they don't know they need or even want. Sometimes it turns into, we get to be Santa Claus, giving people what they didn't even know they wanted. But that's how it usually starts.
And how about with a group? Is it ever the case that, oops, we found out there's a group here and they want different things that compete?
Often. And a lot of that is finding that equilibrium, that you can go to them and say, we've heard a lot of really great ideas, and then we get to weigh in and use our professional opinion and say, but these are the best. And then usually you can get some feedback on those, and you end up coming to a consensus.
Do you ever have to tell someone their baby's ugly?
Not exactly in those words.
Okay, good.
But we do have that happen, and most of the time it's just an idea of saying, well, here's your idea and it works, but then we've taken it a couple steps further and just put our pen to the paper and try to come up with something that works for everyone.
Is there the project that you say, oh, I really want to work on something like?
Well, I can use one that we're working on right now as an example, the Savannah Cultural Arts Center. We went after that really, really hard, and I think when we sat down and we were like, we really want to work on this project, I was like, this puts everything together. Art, architecture, my hometown, yes, the community. And I was so excited that we ended up getting that project that it's now kind of, our firm's baby, and we're really excited about getting it going.
Great. Yeah. So talk to us about that. Where I think everyone kind of knows what that is, but give us some history and what do we have to look forward to?
Sure. It's going to be a really, really great building for the city of Savannah. Right now, as planned, it has a performance art theater, about 500 seats. It has a studio theater, a black box theater, some refer to it. And then it also has studios for visual arts, ceramics, both hand building and wheel building. And the emphasis is to actually reach out to the community and teach. So people would come and they take classes from all ages, kindergarten to elder.
And do you have any sense of time frame?
I think at the moment it's in limbo. but it's moving forward. You know, there's always something happening on it. So
Directionally correct, I
yes.
guess. And is there a certain aspect of that you are most excited about as an artist and as longtime community
I'm
member?
really excited that it's going to be right smack dab in the city center,
Great.
right downtown. So I think that that's going to make it easily accessible to the entire town, which is a great thing.
Great. What would you say to the 7th grader today that says, maybe I want to be an architect?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say find an architect that you like
Okay.
and see what path they went down. And then see if you can interview them, maybe mimic what the path that they followed, but then make sure you choose your own.
Have you ever sought out a 7th grader for that person to have a chance to follow you?
No, I haven't.
That
Shadow
might be
box.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have my own 7th grader.
Well, they don't usually come in that form, but perhaps they do often pass by that stage, or maybe they arrive in that form. So, one last comment, sort of on a historical building versus a brand new building. I'd love your perspective on that kind of project.
You know, it's historic preservation was never something I really focused on in school. I always did what we call, you know, ground up, because you get to start from the little hatchling and you get to make it really whatever you want. And then with historic preservation, I've developed a love for it because it's almost like they've set the boundaries for you and you have to learn to be creative within it. So it's become more of a challenge, I think, that I didn't realize that I was going to go down. But I like both. I tend to do a little bit more ground up just because that's what's happening in the office. But for instance, this project,
Right.
it's a lot of fun because you're putting all these creative brains into technically a box.
Yes, rectangle.
Yeah. So
Wow.
we get to have the ideas and try to make it a little bit more out of the box within the box.
And yet you're creating one of the most important buildings in the city over with the arts. So you get, and that's certainly ground up.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, Maggie Ward, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for all the work
Thanks
you
for
do.
having me.
Of course.